Make it do what it does.
Okay, we
Snap
appear to be
all up in the
live. Let's
camera.
see. Hey LinkedIn, hey YouTube. I see us. Let me turn the volume down over here. They in my ear.
Oh,
Yeah, YouTube is already off. Okay, I see our pretty little faces on both. Let me just make sure. Sometimes I like to log in. Hey y'all, we back with another live podcast today. I want to give you guys a second to pop on in before we get into this juicy conversation today.
hey, hey.
Let's see. I don't know if LinkedIn has us out there yet. Oh, let's see. I always forget that LinkedIn makes me actually hit the button.
Oh, okay.
So YouTube just picks us up automatically and we just live. But LinkedIn likes me to hit the button. So I think we're actually live now on LinkedIn.
Okay. Yep, I see it.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep, I see folks piling on in. Hey y'all, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
Today we are back with another live podcast episode of the Smart Career and Money Moves podcast. I'm doing a live chat with one of my fellow uh, bomb career coach peers who's also creating lots of lovely content here on LinkedIn. She is a career coach, a career and leadership coach. She's helping women position themselves as leaders to get promoted and to make more money. You know, we love to talk about that. She has an impressive corporate career. And like I said, she's one of my favorite LinkedIn creators. Welcome to the show, Miss Teleesa Payne Mason.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate it. Thanks for the
Awesome,
invite.
awesome. Thanks so much for joining. I can't wait to get into today's topic. I left a little bit of a description of what we're going to talk about, and that was just scratching the surface. But I do want to let you guys know if you are here with us live, um, that you can pop your questions in the chat. I'll be constantly checking those. We can answer some questions for you guys. So as we're going through our chit chat, ask us anything, and I'll make sure to get those questions answered. Otherwise, we're just gonna have a little kiki session. We're gonna get to learn a little more about Miss Telesa, um, and then we're just gonna spill some tea like we usually do on the on the podcast.
Right, right.
So I like to start the podcast learning a little bit more about you because people read they read our content, right? And we
Right.
tell our stories sometimes. And even me, sometimes I can be following people for years and they're still always a part of their story that I've never heard before. So from my research, I saw that you studied psychology.
Yeah.
How
Go
how
figure.
how did we become a technology leader? Like walk me through that journey.
All right. So, yeah, so my undergraduate degree is in psychology, but let's back it up even further. My whole idea, my plan was I was going to college because I wanted to become a doctor. And when I got to organic chemistry changed my mind. So, I then pivoted into psychology. So, yes, my undergraduate degree is in psychology. And then after that, I just began working, and it was really weird. I just had a natural kind of affinity for technology and IT. Um, and I started in that space, and my subsequent positions, I just kind of kept landing into IT spaces. Now, I'm not a coder, I don't program, I have no clue about that. But I do love technology. So I know how to talk tech to the tech people, and then I know how to translate that into the comparable or a consumable language for my business customers. So that's what I do.
So you took a technical degree and like weaved your way into tech. So many people are struggling with that. So before we leave today, you're gonna give us some more gems about how you made that pivot. Um,
Sure.
But the first, one of the other things that I love to, the ways that I love to start the podcast is to ask you to finish the sentence.
Okay.
My smartest career in money move was.
Oh. Um, my smartest career and money move was to throw out the window all this old school advice. I think that's really what it was. There were so many people that told me, you need to do A, B, C, and D. I followed that path, and I still was never able to actually move. I was not able to get promoted. They'd say, "Hey, you need to go take a class." Okay, I took the class. Okay, can I get promoted now? No. Okay, so now you need another degree. Okay, I got another degree. Now what? Well, you really don't have a technical degree, so go get a technical degree. Okay, so I did that. So now 3 graduate degrees later, you still haven't promoted me. I just have a
Whoa.
crap ton of student loans and I'm pissed off, but I still don't have another job, right? So I think when I finally took a risk on myself and realized that it wasn't about the, credentials, it wasn't about the graduate degrees, it really was about leveraging my own education and experience in tech spaces, and figuring out what roles could play really to my strengths. That's when I was able really to see a whole different opportunity for myself.
So, what role were you in when you were like, when you decided I want to be promoted?
Yeah.
And yeah, what role were you in?
Okay, so it's my first role because I'm being greedy all my life. So,
Okay.
uh,
First job, like first job.
like, damn, like this is cool and all. Thanks for hiring me on the team, but I could lead this team because they're not doing this right, and there has to be a more efficient way to do it. So, interestingly enough, kind of at the same time, my manager was thinking the same thing. Hey, I really kind of want to promote you to supervisor of this team because you've kind of come up with some new processes, some ways for us to improve how we're doing some things, and I'm gonna put you in a leadership role. Okay, that was cool, but maybe that was another $50. Like that wasn't enough. So I was satisfied. I mean, I was happy initially, but ultimately I knew that I wanted to be in a different place. And so that's when I really began to say, okay, when I look around, I want to be in a director role. What does it take for me to get there? And that's when I began really trying to do my research, understanding from my peers, my leaders around me, how did you get in this space? What is it that I need to do? And that's when I began to start chasing my tail.
Where did you, before I get into this next question, because we got some people here live, I want y'all to
Okay.
drop in the chat for me. Um, have y'all heard the same old school advice about how to get promoted? And if you followed some of those, fell into those traps, drop in the chat, let me know so we can address some of them. So, where did you hear this old school advice, and when did you decide that like this ain't working?
Well, so I think I heard it from in doing some of this research that I just talked about because I really wanted to understand, like my manager, how did you get promoted? What did you have to do? Talk to that person's director, VP, like how did you get promoted? What did you have to do? And so a lot of those conversations, this research, all came back to the same common denominator. And it was interesting. It was always something that I didn't have. So it was like at every point that that I met the next rung on the ladder, then you change the rule. Like it was something else that you got to do. Okay, so I go do that. Oh, well, that's not quite enough. You need to go do this. So every time that happened, I'm accomplishing these things, but it still really is not what's equaling me a real equitable playing field and an opportunity to truly be positioned for promotion. So at the point that I learned much later that it really was about building relationships and talking to other people, letting them know what my aspirations were, understanding how I could potentially help them, and really how they could help me. And that was really the linchpin in like, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to stop being so private. I need to start talking to people and telling them what I want to do. Oh, now I got it.
I mean, you hit on a bunch of key things there, right? You got to stop. I call it being like super humble, like you doing your
Yeah,
job well, but don't nobody know what you're doing.
don't nobody know.
Um, and then it's the other piece of asking people how they got where they are, and what are the keys to doing that. Um, why do you think people want to get promoted? Like, should we even care about it? Like, why do people want to get promoted?
Yeah, so I think people should want to get promoted. I absolutely know without 100% doubt that women need to get promoted because 9 times out of 10 we're working the freaking hardest, right? We're doing all the things. So we're doing the job of Ronnie, Robbie, Big, Ricky, and Michael, whatever it is, right? But we're doing the job of all these people. So you need to get promoted. But I think there is a myth, as we talked about earlier, where women believe, the results will speak for you. Well, your results don't speak for you. They just become used to, and it's an expectation. Yeah, I know Jerry's going to work 50 hours a week. I know Jerry's going to deliver results on time and within budget. But Jerry's never told me she wanted to be promoted. She just works real hard. So let's keep giving her all the work because she's a hard worker. And we don't really care how long it's going to take because guess what? She's going to do anything she has to do to get it done, right? And we believe that there's this whole thing that someone's going to come tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Jerry, it's your turn." That's just not how it happens. That's an absolute myth. And the difference between women and men, why I'm so passionate about this space, is because men go knock on the door. "Hey, Bob, I want a job. I want to be in another job. I need to be a VP within the next 8 months. And I need to be making X amount of money." That's a conversation that they have.
Right.
And whoever that person is on the other side of the test, they're trying to figure out, hey, because we want this guy to stay on our team, we need to figure out how to make that happen. Right? And those are just not conversations that women are often, one, I think we don't know to have the conversation. That's
Right.
one thing. But I think in another place, they may not know how to position the conversation as well as why, they are the person that deserves it and why it's time.
Yeah, you said something very interesting. And I think it's very important to highlight that. And I've had this conversation with a couple of my other guests, but it's like everybody's just doing their job, like including your manager. So your manager is, they're doing their job. They're expecting you to just push out deliverables. And it's like if I have a team of 4 people and they're all pushing out deliverables, um, how do I know, who wants the leadership role, right? I don't want to just pick somebody out of the blue. And that's typically, you know, where I think people who haven't been promoted or who haven't had leadership experience, where they get confused that like the manager's gonna decide who should take the next step and that, all of these things, when in reality, it's much more easier if you come to them, like you said, and say, "Hey, I'm interested in
Yeah.
this role," and a good manager is going to help you make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, it's definitely you have to talk about. I just saw a note in the chat from somebody said, um, it hit me hard about being private. I think that being private also, in some cases, and I would say I can speak for a black woman. I think in our culture, it's around being quiet, being private. You were taught. I was raised to be private. You don't tell people what happened at home, right? You just go
Right.
deal with whatever you deal with. But that is not that is really the opposite approach. If in fact you want to get promoted, you have to your point, manage up. There are multiple components to managing up. We may not have time to talk about that today, but one of those is about telling your manager where you want to be. I mean, they owe it to you. Their role is to coach and develop you. That's why they're there. That's what they're supposed to do. Now they may be doing other things, but their primary role is to coach and develop their team. With that, that means they need to be just as invested as you are. Now, they'll never be the advocate that you are for your career. You are, in fact, your number one cheerleader. Nobody's ever going to care about your career like you, but you have to bring that to them to the table.
So you said another thing that was really interesting about the differences between men and women and how we go about promoting ourselves and asking for the next step. So bring me to that moment where your passion was ignited when you said to yourself, "I need to help more women become leaders in corporate."
Oh my goodness. Well, so it was from the number of women, I think that let me say it this way. You really never know, Jerry, how many people see you or how many people watch you. And so, what I began to notice over the last few years prior to me starting my company was women would come to me and say, "Hey, tell me about your career. Tell me, how did you get here? What were the things that you have done?" And so, after having tons and tons of these consultations, I was like, is this really a problem for you? Like, you didn't notice? And so I began. That's what it really hit me. Like, women don't understand. Nobody. is really telling you how to navigate corporate spaces. I
Right.
see, one of the challenges that I have on LinkedIn, you talked about content, is that there's so many people that are out here selling what I'll call a pipe dream. And this is me because I'm raw and uncut. But selling the dream of, hey, you need a new resume. Make sure you get your new resume. Piss on a resume. I mean, yeah, you need one, but at the end of the day, a resume is not going to one sustain you. It's just your key to get in the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you better know how to advocate for yourself when you get to that interview table. And then most importantly, you need to know that once you get the job, you're the successful candidate, then how do you navigate that new team, that new culture to continue to navigate and elevate yourself? To the next level.
Mm-hmm.
If nobody talks to you about how to manage conflict, then you don't know how to do it,
Right.
right? And so most often you end up in this perpetual, it's just not working. Corporate America is not for me. No, corporate America can be for you. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to know the rules on how to play the game. And they're not out there. You can't Google them. You can't.
Absolutely. So, couple things. You can't Google them because for most of us, um, a lot of us are first generation corporate. We
Yep.
literally had nobody to talk
Right.
to.
Exactly.
We're,
Exactly.
I know I'm the first person in my family to have a 401k.
See?
Everybody else, with government or something, they had a pension, so they literally totally different space. And so what are we, millennials? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody from millennial on, you didn't have nobody to ask. And
Right.
so I love that we can share that with people now,
Right.
um, and give them the tools. Because, the other thing you mentioned is the resume. And you know why people want to believe that the resume is the answer? They want to believe it because it's easy. It's
Yeah.
easy well, I ain't gonna say it's easy because I'm not gonna downplay it, but it's
Absolutely.
easier.
Yeah. I
It's
don't want to downplay it.
easier to put some things on paper because that allows you to still be private, like you said. It allows you
Absolutely.
to still be private, but it's like when you have to speak, and speak your expertise and get people to um, understand you very well, that's a totally different skill set. And so I too believe people shouldn't uh, fall into that trap. I got one more question for Telesa, and then we're gonna get into some of these questions, and we got some other juicy topics to talk about. We're gonna get into some of her
Okay.
content that she has produced. Um, Actually, I got two questions.
Okay.
What is your number one piece of advice for women who are struggling to position themselves as a leader at work?
So my number one advice would be first to make sure that you count all your wins. I think many times my clients, when we talk, the biggest thing is they're looking for this monumental, thing that happened um, before they write it down and take a note. But
Mm-hmm.
every time you get an email, thanks for doing that. We appreciate you. Thank you. I call it just my kudos folder. Every time somebody says it, just put it there. Make that note and make that become a habit, because what those things ultimately become are opportunities for you to craft career stories, one for your interview, but also for your advocacy story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you go in and talk to your manager, sometimes when we become so accustomed to doing a good job, we normalize things that most people can't even accomplish. Like they can't even
Yeah,
figure out. And so you need to count all wins so that then you will become and have data to support why you are X, Y, and Z.
absolutely. Um, so you touched on a bunch of things. We struggled. We were private, and then we're also not keeping track of our goals, which are not of our goals, but what we've accomplished, which makes it easy for people to pass us over. I mean, we're almost
Absolutely.
asking to be
Yeah.
passed over
Yeah.
because nobody else is keeping track of what you've done. And that
Right.
kind of leads me to my next question. Um, who do you think is to blame for women being passed over so frequently?
Mm. I don't know if I would say who is the to blame. I would just say I think it's the system. The system
Okay.
was not created for
Mm,
us, right? It wasn't designed to say, Hey, women, as you navigate your workspace, you should do A, B, and C. You should always be thinking about your next step. You should always be building relationships. You should always be trying to leverage any stretch opportunity that you can, and you should always count your wins. Nobody's out there telling you that. I have an MBA. I told you I have 3 graduate degrees.
Mm-hmm.
They don't teach you that in grad school,
Yeah.
right? They don't tell you about that. They're telling you about how to do a CapEx. Okay, whatever. Um, how in fact do I deal with this idiot in the boardroom that I just said what I said and he repeated it and then everybody started clapping? Tell me how to deal with
Oh,
that, right? How do
yeah.
I deal with that professionally and boldly,
Mm-hmm.
right? But still courageous. You know, how do I do those things? How in fact do I disagree with Billy in this same boardroom because I know that my data supports he's wrong? How do I do that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
So
not feeling strange about it, because
right,
as
and be okay
women,
in it.
yeah, our,
You know,
natural inclination is to nurture, but sometimes in the boardroom, right? It's like you said, I have a technical mindset. So for me, data is no problem, right? Somebody brings something up, I'm gonna hit you with some facts. And
right, right,
I don't feel anything about it. It's just the
yeah.
facts of the facts. Um, but I know that that's a struggle for some women.
That is a struggle for
To
me.
kind of lean in on that. Let's see what some of these questions are from the audience, and then we're gonna get into some of your content. Uh, Champagne says, "How do you navigate being rejected when you voice your opinion or make known your goals in mind and how to get there, or if you apply for that position, especially for something you're qualified for? I've been in that position before. So how do you navigate being rejected when you voice your opinion?"
Sure. So navigate being well. I think one thing there's this old adage that says rejection is redirection, right?
Mm-hmm.
My belief system says what's for me is for me. That's one. So that's blanket. But two, I believe that most often you have to show up for yourself with the right energy, the right passion around the role. I can tell you a story about I applied for a job, maybe similar to Champagne's story, but applied for a job, knew I met all the qualifications, and I didn't get the job. And when I went to have a follow up meeting with the hiring manager, I'm like, hey, why you didn't hire me? Like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something I need to work on? And of course, I didn't position it that way, but essentially, I really wanted to understand what were the things that I needed to work on so that if this another opportunity presented itself, what could make me the ideal or the successful candidate? And the primary thing that I remember from 20 years ago was he said, you didn't demonstrate any passion. And I was like, was I supposed to jump up and down, like beat my hand on the
Mm-hmm.
desk? Like, what did you want me to do? You asked a question, I gave you an answer. At the time, I did not realize how important my authenticity was, how important my personality was. Because a
Mm-hmm.
hiring manager, for whatever job it is, there's two things that they want to understand: one, that you can solve their problems, and two, that you won't blow up their team. That's it. That's all they want to know. They don't care, and the subject matter doesn't matter. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about the subject matter because I can teach you any subject. But can you solve my problems? And when I say can you solve, does that mean you have all the answers? Not necessarily, but you have the gut, the grit, right, to
Mm.
go and figure it out or leverage someone that does. And then secondly, that you're not going to be like a bull in a china shop, right? That you have the emotional intelligence to communicate and collaborate with the people on the team because you don't get, it's kind of like family, right? We don't get to pick them. We get who we get,
All right. It's
right?
certainly like
So,
family.
yeah. So you got to
You
figure out how to work with them.
My advice, Champagne, because the next part of her question, I guess she was saying, how do you navigate being rejected when you make your opinion known that you want to go for that next level role and when you feel qualified for it? And so, similar to what Telesa is saying, sometimes it's not up to them. I'm not a fan of allowing, just like you encounter someone who didn't think you were ready for the role. That will always happen. Don't let it stop you, because that's just one person's opinion, and every hiring manager will hire based on a different feeling that they get. And so I would say keep going. Maybe that's not the route for you. Maybe that's not the route for you. It doesn't mean that's not the job for you. You're not you know, qualified for the promotion or whatever, um, I always say find another route. And in one of my podcasts with Yvette Simpson, she said, well, when one door is closed, go through the window.
Right there. That part, I
So
like
that's
it.
what I suggest.
Absolutely.
Valerie here has a very interesting situation here. She was saying she went up for a promotion, and she was told by her dean that in order to get the promotion, she needed a certification. She immediately enrolled in the program for $6,000. It's been 4 years and still no promotion. She's looking for another job because she's been passed over, and she doesn't think she'll ever get the promotion in this district where she is. What would you do, Telesa?
Wow. So I'm not necessarily familiar enough with the hierarchy within the education system to talk about other roles or comparable positions to the one that you applied for. But kind of to your earlier point, one, I would continue to try for other roles. Maybe it's not the, I think you said the AP position, but are there other opportunities? Are there other roles? Now, one of your questions, I thought I saw that you said something about going for an additional certification. I would not. I do not support that. I
They
believe that if you've already kind of,
yeah.
is that what she said?
They told her to do it, she did, and now 4 years
Oh,
later,
oh.
they didn't give her the promotion.
So this one though, she said considering taking the instructional designer certification in the fall. Um, and that's in addition,
So
Jerry, to your
in
point.
addition to the one
Yeah,
she
that's in
already
addition to what
did.
like you've already jumped over the hoop, right? So at this point, it's just about continuing to go back to practice every day, right? That you're going back to practice, and you're just gonna keep shooting your shot. But as far as incurring an additional expense, talking about somebody with hundreds of thousands of dollars in
Girl,
student loans, don't do that. Don't do that, sis. I don't think it's required. I
no,
just don't think it's required.
not at
Now, that
all.
may not help you become employed at this particular place, but there are other places to become employed. And I say it's about continuing to put your name in the hat.
Yeah, she's gonna lead me right into your piece of your one of your nice pieces of content that I want to talk about.
Okay.
But um, my advice, Valerie, is sometimes you encounter leadership that they don't really know how to coach you through and to help you level up. They don't really know what to do or say, so they tell you just to go get some more education. It's just stalling. It's just stalling because if all you needed was that certification, um, there should have been a plan in place, right? You're enrolling in this certification, and then there's a 90-day plan or there's a 6-month plan. Here's the role that I see for you. And I think everybody who's listening, right, like, don't take the bait. If they don't have a plan in place, like, here's what's going to happen when you get this degree or when you enroll, don't do it because they are stalling and they really just don't know how to help you level up. Um, so, Telesa, recently you posted a piece of content that said over credentialing is not a fast pass to the front of the line. And I think Valerie is like a living testimony. But what was your motivation for this post?
So my motivation was a conversation with somebody similar to Valerie, but also thinking about myself. When I completed my MBA, then I thought somebody was gonna like pull me in the office and say, "Oh wow, congratulations, you graduated. So now you're gonna get an extra X amount of dollars a year." And I was like looking around after I finished. I'm like, I graduated. I told my manager I graduated. Here's my degree. I graduated. And she's like, okay, congratulations. And we went on. And nothing ever happened. And I at that time didn't know to advocate for myself, didn't know to even ask a question. So I didn't even say anything, right? But that's really when I decided that oh, I'm sorry, I got off track. This post was about, that made it took me back to that time when I was confused in that same way. And what that really means is just like I think probably in Valerie's case, you have the education, you have the experience, right? And you obviously have the exposure in this particular area. This particular district is not the only district in the world.
Right.
The beauty of COVID is that now we have opportunities across from outside of your zip code, right? So maybe there's another district that's looking for the level of expertise that you have, that would be willing to allow you to work for them in a hybrid basis. I guess what I'm saying is, I think the myth of this over credentialing, you need this degree and this certification, still don't automatically equal the job. So why not try it with the level of expertise that you have? Because maybe where the real story is not that you need something additional, but you need to be able to learn how to better sell,
Mm-hmm.
communicate what you already have accomplished. Like you've already done this thing. So let's talk about how good that is and why it matters. How that's going to help you in this role. That's really the thing that needs to be sold more so than another certification that you may or not have even have experience in, if that makes sense.
100% it makes sense. I mean, once you're in the room, any additional education you get, it should be because you want to, because it's a
Yeah,
passion of yours,
right,
right?
right.
Like, because it really, it may or may not amount to anything. One of your other posts, you say, I want imposter syndrome.
Oh
Who said
yeah.
imposter syndrome is a bad thing? And I think maybe over credentialing, is it a just a method of trying to overcome imposter syndrome? What you
That
think?
probably, yeah, I think that's a good connection. You may make me inspire another post. But yeah,
Ah!
that definitely could probably tie together. But this imposter syndrome, I want it. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, imposter syndrome, I just can't do it. No, no, no. I want imposter syndrome. Because to me, I think if you reframe imposter syndrome, you can win against it. What happens is so often people are saying, well, I'm comparing myself to other people. But I want to be an EVP of a talent agency one day, the largest talent agency for women of color. Okay? That's what I
Okay.
want to be. I've never done that before. So
Mm-hmm.
once in fact I become this EVP, I am going to emulate somebody. That's true. I'm going because I've never done it. So it's really okay. And even while I am emulating said person, I'm still gonna add Telesa's secret sauce to it because I'm me. And I'm gonna bring all of my experience and exposure and education to that particular role. So I think it's about the reframe. It's not about, it's nothing wrong with comparing yourself to someone else. All the boys that play basketball want to be LeBron,
Right.
except for Desmond Baines, but that's a whole nother topic. But they all want to be LeBron. This is your mark, right? So and
Mm-hmm.
that's really okay. We all need to have a goal and aspiration. But when you reframe it to say, I've never done it and I'm gonna give it all I got, I'm gonna watch this person that's in front of me, but I'm gonna do all I can to either if not meet where they are, go beyond that. That's not a problem to me. I want the opportunity. I'm chasing it.
I absolutely like a light bulb just went off in my head. I absolutely love the way you just reframed that because what I received was that instead of feeling like I'm not good enough period because that's typically what imposter syndrome. I'm
Right,
not
right,
good
right.
enough period. It's like who is at the top of the mountain. And it's like, while I'm not comparing myself to them, I'm simply trying to emulate some of the things that I have seen them do. I mean, for me, that makes it like a no brainer. Drop in the chat if you have ever struggled with imposter syndrome and if you like Telesa's explanation. Um, Cause I agree with you. Then it's like you're not being fake. You're not less than. It's like, of course, I'm not as good of a player as LeBron. Like, of
Right.
course, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
That's really okay. But that should fuel me, right?
Yeah.
That should encourage me to get to the gym every day, to know that I gotta practice. And I gotta go to the free throw
Mm.
line maybe for 2 hours if he goes 1 hour, right? I gotta go on Saturdays. I gotta go after church. I gotta get back to the free throw line. Because LeBron is out here. What,
Yeah.
LeBron is out here. And I'm trying to get there. It's really okay. I'm gonna get the best place that Telesa can be, but I gotta continue to have something to put my eye on. It's like keeping your eye on a target almost.
Love that. When I asked you what your smartest career money move was, you said throwing away a lot of the garbage advice that you had heard. Um, and so, in one of your recent posts, you also talked about how you could have made $40,000 more if you had avoided these three mistakes. What were those three mistakes?
Yeah, so what I talked about there was about how men are hired based on, Charlie really has the potential to be a really dynamic leader in the future. But when they look at women, they say, well, what has Telesa done to actually, get this role?
Mm.
And what I allowed things in the past to do as I compared myself to some of my male colleagues was really stop me from even going after a role, right? Um, if there was a role and if I didn't meet 100% of the criteria, so if it's 10 items on the list and I didn't meet all 10 or 11 that they didn't even have on the paper, I didn't apply,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Okay.
think there's, to your point, you gotta know you're a data person. There's a stat that says men will apply for a role if they meet 60% of the criteria. They apply. If I believe it's probably 30, they apply,
10.
right? Right. Well,
10.
women are like, if it's one conjunction that they don't meet, they're like, oh no, can't apply for that. I don't qualify. They're not gonna call my name.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is such a misnomer. And I was susceptible to it. I did that myself, which I know shortchanged me and kind of delayed my ascent into
Okay.
leadership because I was afraid to step out and really take a chance on myself. And then when I had the opportunity, I didn't know what to say. I didn't because I
Mm.
didn't write down any of the things that I did. I was just trying to do all the things. I didn't know to tell anybody. So I just did it and kept doing it. Every time they raised the bar, I kept jumping over it. But I
Mm-hmm.
never wrote it down. So if you were to ask me, well, tell me about a time, when you walk water, I'm like, I can't remember. So now you have nothing, no data
Right.
to support what you've actually brought to the table.
I
Yep.
mean, so it was not keeping track of your accomplishments, trying to meet all the qualifications, and then was it one other one? Did I miss one?
Oh, let me see what else did I talk about.
I'm
Oh,
just
I
giving the
talked
people
about not meeting the
some
criteria.
some quick
Um,
tips.
and there was one. The other thing that I learned is that men ideally are thought of as leaders, but when there's a woman in leadership, it's like, that's such a unique situation because women can't really lead. They're often so
Right.
emotional. They really can't do it. We don't want them to be. We don't want her to be too bold, too aggressive, that kind of thing, which caused me to kind of quiet my voice, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
kind of, I don't want to say dumb down, but I definitely quieted my personality rather than saying, this is who I am. I'm bold, I'm direct, and I said it. I meant it.
I love doing these podcast interviews, and you know why? Because it gets my brain going, and like just so many things. Just they call it. I call it like a download. So many things just
Yeah.
get downloaded. You were talking about why men are judged based on potential and women are based on what they've done, and I just took a note. I think in society, period,
Mhm.
especially in corporate, men are viewed as dreamers and women are viewed as doers. And that's why it's okay for a man to be judged on his potential because it's like he's only supposed to dream.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so we're women, we're being judged on our what we've done cuz we're supposed to be doing. Like that's
Yep.
in somebody's head somewhere. I mean,
That's the expectation.
I
Yeah.
had never really put those two sentences together, but I mean, I think that kind of explains why people struggle to view women as leaders because they expect you to be doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's also that so again, I go back, I think the system was not designed for us. And for so long, we've tried to figure out how to fit in. If you think about, so often I see when we go, there's a meeting, right, in the boardroom, and the men are all around the table, and there are two women or there's a woman in the room. The first thing that she does is she opens her binder, pulls out a pen, and every time somebody says something, she taking notes, right? Men don't take notes in meetings. They sit back and talk about it. They just sit back talk. Oh well, yeah, Billy, da 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 da. Right? It's just conversation.
Yeah.
But the woman has a full transcript, you know, of what
Yeah.
happened. And it's just amazing how these norms, just become what our reality is, and we kind of fold
Right.
back down into being less than. When I think there's opportunity, don't open your notebook. Why you got to take the minutes? If don't nobody
Right.
remember, oh well, that's on them.
Especially if that ain't a part of your job.
Right? Oh well, they don't remember.
Yeah, I
Right?
think it's important to note that, like, why are you taking the notes? Why are you taking the minutes? If you're taking notes because somebody says something you want to follow up on,
Right.
or something that you want to take and run with in the next meeting, right? That's the gem from that. It's like
Yeah.
we ain't documenting the call now.
Right. Right.
My
Right.
notes is
Right.
for me. So when John comes and says, "Can you send out the meeting?" Even if you are taking notes, can you see that send out the meeting minutes? I cannot, because I was actually taking notes about points A, B, and C, and I'm
Right.
getting prepared for next week's call. I don't know. Maybe you should ask somebody else. That's how you do it professionally.
There you go.
Let's
There it
see.
is.
Veronica says, very true fact about males. I've experienced it and have been told to dominate from a position, from a promotion. Have been told to denominate from a promotion because they wanted Hector to have it because they didn't know how to discipline him. Come on. I've been told to dumb down and now I'm stuck.
Oh wow.
Veronica, you gotta leave, baby. Oh, this is
Yep.
that was Valerie above. I thought this was Valerie again. I was like, oh no, I would never dumb myself down. I'd go somewhere else who valued me.
Yep. That means it's time to go.
Very true about notes, but it has saved me. My notes are for me, and I say no. I love that. Yes, your notes are for you. Um, so I want to get your opinion, to Lisa, on some things that are kind of just floating around in the internet streets and in the news, because we both kind of work with people looking for jobs and in their
Sure. Yeah.
careers, and so there are reports that jobs growth is surging in the U.S. despite the recession fears. Who do you think has the upper hand in the market right now? Is it the employees or the employers?
Ooh. I was having this conversation with someone actually a few days ago, and I honestly feel like it's the employee, in many ways because you know the I go back to this whole COVID situation. A few years back, pre pandemic, you were regulated to jobs within your zip code unless you wanted to move. But now the opportunities are so vast because the whole playing field has opened up. Um, and many companies. I know my former company at one point, managers, leadership roles had to be based in Memphis. I'm in Memphis. Had to be
Mm.
based in Memphis. But now that same company that I used to work for, they're hiring managers, directors. They don't care where they live,
Oh, nice.
right? And but that's this post-pandemic world. And so I do think that now, because of that, it gives employees many more options than we originally had, or they originally had in the past. And I think that's a good thing. I think you do need to keep your options open because there are people like Valerie, right? And like what Veronica just talked about, who need to really think about what else can I do, because this
Yeah.
place, this role is no longer serving me. And there's not an opportunity here.
Right. And being stuck is relative now.
Yep, it
Being
really
stuck is
is.
relative because there's somebody else,
Right.
might
Yeah.
maybe at a different company in a different location,
Hmm.
who can probably help you get unstuck and would be happy to have you.
And
Um,
Jerry, I want to go back to what we were talking about. I talked about the resume thing because I don't want somebody to think that I don't think that's important. Resumes are super, super important, and there are tons of great resume coaches on LinkedIn that do that. I think that piece is important. But really, where I really focus on and what I'm passionate about is helping women navigate post resume interview,
yeah.
that process, kind of the middle part of the funnel. Once you have the role, now how do we get you into, if not your first leadership role, into the next level of leadership?
Mm-hmm.
How do we help you navigate those roles or those spaces that have never been that are not communicated, right? You can't put in Chat GPT, how do I navigate in the boardroom?
Mm.
It's not gonna help you.
I'm
It's
glad you.
not there.
I'm glad you brought up Chat GPT. Because my next thing I wanted to ask you about was and the what the headline is right now is that it's estimated that AI could replace more than 300 million jobs worldwide.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
are you using AI, and what do you think employees should do to make sure they're not impacted?
oh my gosh. I do think, I think that especially in the, in the space that I'm in, the technology space, so
Mm-hmm.
especially in our space, I think this whole chat GPT, this AI is obviously brand new territory, and companies are trying to figure out how to navigate it. What is it going to mean? Are employees putting their data out here in who knows where, in whoever's
Mm,
hands and things like that? So I think that that space and how we protect, how companies are protecting their data going forward related to AI is going to be a huge issue. But the second thing around it taking jobs and impacting the job market, while I do think that there are some rote jobs, where that I could see that being the case, but I also still believe that when you think about leadership roles, there are
mm-hmm.
still roles that require that authentic human emotional engagement that you can't teach to Chat GPT. AI can do its best, but it's still not going to spit out the same type of response or deliverable. So I can see some roles impacted, but I don't think everything will be impacted, and we're just gonna be in the jet somewhere. I don't see that.
Yeah, I like that you made that distinction though. So some people who have very transactional roles,
Mm-hmm.
um, they may need to look into some sort of way of adding value beyond the transaction because the AI can perform the transaction. But I like the distinction that you made that like there are just various aspects of being a leader in an organization that it's just so day to day, so
Yeah,
move on a dime that like you do need that human piece to it sometimes. Um, and so you guys drop any of your we're nearing the end of our interview here. It's been, I mean, I've gotten so many things in my head. Talisa was talking about I inspired some content for her. I have like 3 posts in me from today's conversation. So drop your last questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to those before we go. But what advice do you have for that woman out there who is struggling? Like,
sure.
what advice do you want to leave the audience with today about
Gotcha.
becoming a leader as a woman?
I I think it really depends on where you're struggling, and I
Mm-hmm.
think first you need to really assess really identify where the problem is. I think we had two really great examples from Veronica and Valerie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like just based on what we've heard, and clearly that's just an anecdote, but based on what we heard in those spaces, that culture is not serving them. So that
Mm-hmm.
means it is probably somewhere, that you need to move somewhere else. What you will know about me is that I'm an advocate for people promoting in their existing space. I don't advocate for people necessarily to leave their companies. I'm saying, hey, if you're in marketing, maybe there's an opportunity for you in sales. Maybe there's an opportunity for you in IT. Explore that space where you are, leveraging your existing skill set. I think it boils down to just a few things. One, it's about building relationships. Um, Other people have to know who you are. Most often, if you reach out to a leader in another area, they are going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes, 20 minutes of their time, a virtual coffee chat just to understand who they are, what they've done, what was their career journey. People enjoy talking about themselves. That's one thing. But the
Mm-hmm.
second thing is that you are able to pick up nuggets. What did they do differently? What are they doing? Maybe it's something that you can take away and you can leverage it, put your own spin on that particular thing. But not only about building relationships, I think that you have to open your mouth. You have to let go of
Mm-hmm.
being private. Um, the next thing is that allowing people to see you for who you are, because private about your job is one thing, but I think another thing is that people hire people, and if you seem robotic, if you cannot talk about anything else but work, Like you can't talk about your cat, your dog, your goldfish. It becomes a problem because I don't get to see you as human,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everybody that knows me knows that I have a son. I do. I talk about him.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people like, oh, that's my family. I don't want to talk about them. Da, da. But you put him on Facebook, so why you can't talk about him at work, right? I didn't say give him his social security number,
Right.
but talk about him. Talk about your grandmama. Find something that you're safe and you're comfortable in talking about because you want people to understand and be able to see this human side of you. Because as I talked about earlier, two things happen in an interview. Can you solve my problems? And are you going to blow up my team? The blow up my team part is I need to know how you're going to fit in my culture,
Right.
right? What's important to you? What do you like? You know, and we don't always do that. And when people can't see that authentic, that it's a human on the other side, many times that's the reason why you don't get the
Mm-hmm.
next step, why you don't get the job offer. It's not because you don't meet the qualifications. It's that I didn't like talking to you. Like you weren't fun to talk to. You didn't smile at me.
Mm-hmm.
During the interview, the whole thing you were looking stone faced. You answered and you shut up. And you said like this the whole time. My name is Telesa.
Oh,
So
you making me laugh. Um, I know the listeners of the Smart Career Money Moves podcast, and the people that are going to watch it on YouTube, and the people who are here live today, um, they want to follow you. Where can we find you? Where can we support you? Where can we learn more about Telesa? And more importantly, how can they work with you?
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. I am on LinkedIn, Teleesa Payne Mason. That's me. I'm here all day, every day. So follow me, reach out to me. Happy to talk to you, happy to support. And if I'm not the person to support you, I know tons of career coaches, depending on where you are. I think the most important thing for me is to see women get ahead,
Okay.
right? And I can't work with all the women in the world, but I know some dynamic career coaches that can support you wherever you are in your journey, whatever the thing is. If you're an HR professional that wants to excel in HR, then Nikisha Hicks is your coach. That's what she does, right? So if in fact you want to get your resume redone, that's what you need. Nadeja is your person. I know people that can help you.
Mm.
I just want to see women get ahead. But if you're not understanding why you're not able to navigate your career space and why I think you have the job, but you just can't, you're just spinning, then I'm the girl to talk to. So let's talk about what's happening
Mm.
and how we can fix it.
Well, you guys, that was a mic drop. So, unless there's any other questions, I want to just say thank you so much for sharing all that knowledge. I mean, it was like all of your best content wrapped up in 40 minutes.
All right.
So, thank you so much for being a guest today. I can't wait to see more from you. I know this is just the beginning. I can't wait to see where you continue to take your brand.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jerry.
All